He just wanted to walk his daughter to school on her first day. Instead, Judge Raymond Kelly was forced to his knees in front of stunned parents and his terrified child. Officer Brady never asked his name. He saw the color of his skin and assumed authority without question. But what he didn't know was that the man he humiliated could change the system from the inside out. Just wait until you see how this story turns, and why, in the end, justice didn't just speak, it stood tall. It was a warm, golden morning in suburban Georgia, the kind of morning where everything felt gentle, unthreatening, almost cinematic. The early September sun filtered softly through the trees lining the elementary school drop-off lane. Minivans rolled up with a faint hum, releasing excited children with brightly colored backpacks, some skipping, others clutching their mother's hand with both excitement and fear. Mothers and fathers stood in small groups, sipping from insulated mugs, whispering about carpools and classroom supplies. Laughter echoed from the playground. The school bell hadn't rung yet, and the air smelled faintly of fresh mulch and warm asphalt. It was a good day, a safe day. At the edge of the school lot, parked neatly within the painted visitor lines, stood a black Mercedes sedan. By its side, a tall black man in a perfectly pressed navy three-piece suit gently held the hand of a little girl in pink canvas shoes and braids tied with white beads. He was calm, composed, a man used to waiting with stillness. In his left hand he held a slim leather briefcase. His right never let go of his daughter's fingers. Judge Raymond Kelly didn't wear a robe outside the courthouse, but something about his posture, the natural authority in his shoulders, the quiet confidence in his stillness, made people instinctively move aside. Today, however, he was simply a father. No camera, no bench, no gavel. Just a dad bringing his 5-year-old daughter Kayla to her first day of kindergarten. She held tight to his wrist, her pink backpack swinging as she leaned closer to him. Then the sound of tires scraping slightly over curb broke the rhythm of the morning. A marked patrol car rolled in, and out stepped a tall white officer in beige school duty uniform. His face was unreadable, but his walk was sharp, purposeful, tense. He approached briskly. "Hey!" the officer barked from a few steps away. "What are you doing standing here?" Raymond blinked, confused by the tone. "Just waiting to take my daughter in, sir." "This school's not in your district. Show me your ID." The words hung in the air. A few parents turned their heads. Raymond straightened slightly, still holding Kayla's hand. "Excuse me?" "I said, show me your ID, now, or I'll take you in." The air shifted. Laughter on the playground faded slightly. A distant tricycle screeched to a stop. "I'm not sure why this is necessary," Raymond began, keeping his voice calm, low. "Don't play smart," the officer snapped. "Hands where I can see them, out of your pockets." Raymond's hands were already visible. Still, the officer stepped closer, now towering. "On your knees," he ordered. A hush spread down the sidewalk. Someone paused mid-sip of coffee. A child looked up at their mother, who pretended not to see. Raymond didn't move. He glanced down at Kayla, whose tiny fingers had tensed around his. The officer didn't wait. He reached for Raymond's briefcase, yanking it roughly from his hand, causing Kayla to stumble slightly. "I said, down!" There was no threat in Raymond's stance, no aggression, only confusion and restraint. But there, before the welcome banner strung across the gates, under paper balloons and a chalk drawing that read, "First Day," Raymond slowly bent his knees and lowered himself to the pavement, never letting go of his daughter's hand. Parents on the steps turned away. Some watched in silence, their faces blank. Others looked down, pretending to read a text message. No one spoke. The officer stood over him, still tense. "Thought you could just show up like this? Like you run this place?" No answer came. Raymond didn't speak. He stared at the ground, then at his daughter, whose lip was now trembling, though she tried her best not to cry. She was 5. She didn't understand laws. But she understood this. Her father was on his knees, and everyone was watching. And no one, not a single adult, came to help. By the next morning, the silence had already been broken. Not by official statements, but by the screens in millions of hands. The video surfaced first on a local parent's Facebook page. A grainy, shaky recording, just 30 seconds long, captured a moment that froze the breath of anyone who watched it. In the frame, a black man in a suit kneeling on the pavement outside a kindergarten gate, one hand clutching a crying child, the other raised calmly while a white school officer hovered over him, shouting. There was no sound at first, but then another parent's phone angle provided the audio. The officer's voice was loud, aggressive. His words cut through the speakers. The man on the ground said almost nothing, just held his daughter's hand as she whimpered, terrified and confused. The caption under the post read, "Just another day in America." Within hours, the footage was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Reddit. Cable news picked it up by late afternoon. Hashtags bloomed like wildfire. Kindergarten, kneeling. Who, she, protect black fathers, day in America. There were countless assumptions. Some said he looked out of place. Others claimed, we don't know the full story. Still others whispered that maybe it was all a misunderstanding. No one seemed to know the man's name, and that, quietly, was the first sign of something shifting. Because what the world didn't know yet was this. The man in the suit wasn't just a father. He was Judge Raymond A. Kelly, sitting justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. He had authored landmark decisions on criminal sentencing reform. He had led task forces on judicial accountability. He had once been shortlisted for nomination to the federal appellate bench, a name whispered for years among those discussing future Supreme Court nominees. Behind that calm demeanor was a mind that shaped law and precedent, and a man who had dedicated his entire life to upholding the Constitution. But in those 2 days following the incident, Judge Kelly said nothing. No tweets, no interviews, no official statements. The silence was deafening. Meanwhile, the local sheriff's department scrambled to get ahead of the narrative. Officer Dale Brady, the man in the video, submitted a report stating that he had encountered a suspicious individual loitering near a school who he claimed was visibly agitated and refused to cooperate. The report described the man as verbally aggressive and possibly armed. Local press repeated these claims unquestioningly. In a brief press appearance, the precinct's commanding officer publicly supported Brady's version, saying, "In today's climate, our officers have to make quick decisions. Safety comes first." It might have ended there, but it didn't. On the third morning, just as the debate online reached a boiling point, the courthouse called a press conference. No one knew what to expect. Judge Kelly stepped up to the podium in front of a packed room, his posture steady, his voice calm. He wore a deep navy suit, his tie solid charcoal. By his side stood his daughter, Kayla, in a pale dress, holding tightly to his hand, the same hand she had clutched 3 mornings ago as he knelt on the pavement. He looked at the sea of microphones and paused. Then he spoke. "I am the man you saw on your screens, the one on his knees, and I am also your judge." His words were slow, deliberate, like gavel strikes. The room fell silent. For years, I have presided over cases involving justice, fairness, and constitutional rights. I have sentenced murderers. I have protected victims. I have upheld the law with everything I have. I stayed silent these past days not out of fear, but out of restraint. I waited to see if the system I've dedicated my life to would correct itself. It did not. So now I speak. There was no yelling, no dramatics, just quiet truth, delivered by a man who had the moral authority of an entire bench behind him. That moment changed everything. The same people who had commented, "He must have done something," now sat silent. Editorials shifted tone overnight. Legal scholars weighed in. High-ranking officials issued apologies. The governor's office declined to comment, a silence that echoed louder than any speech. Online, the judge's face, once obscured, became a symbol of something greater: dignity under pressure, power without arrogance, restraint in the face of humiliation. And the question began to circulate everywhere. If they could do this to him, what does it say about the rest of us? That was the day a man stood up, not from his knees, but from a place deeper, the silence of principled strength. and the country watched. 48 hours after Judge Kelly's quiet declaration shook the nation, the public had spoken, and loudly. An online petition demanding the immediate resignation of Officer Dale Brady skyrocketed past 2 million signatures. Teachers, parents, and students joined activists and citizens from across the country. Legal forums, news panels, and town halls echoed with a singular question. If this could happen to Judge Kelly, what chance does the average man have? But the wave didn't stop with outrage. Across the legal community, hundreds of lawyers, prosecutors, and judges, some conservative, others liberal, released statements of unity. Former appellate court justices gave interviews. Even the president of the American Bar Association stepped forward. Judge Raymond A. Kelly, he said in a solemn televised address, is among the most respected legal minds of our generation. What happened to him is not just an insult to a man, it is a stain on our system, and we will not turn away from it. And yet, Raymond Kelly did not ask for punishment. He declined to pursue criminal charges. He did not seek to sue, indict, or dismantle. Instead, he asked for change. Standing once again before the cameras, this time in the Grand Hall of the Georgia State Capitol, he proposed a new legislative initiative, mandatory statewide training in racial de-escalation for all active law enforcement officers, public forums where citizens could question and understand the protocols used by those tasked with protecting them. We do not need revenge, he said. We need reform. If my pain can prevent another father from kneeling in front of his child, then it was not endured in vain. The room fell silent, not out of fear, but out of respect. 2 days later, Officer Brady was dismissed from his post. His formal statement to the press contained no apology, only a brief mention of procedural misunderstanding. It circulated online for less than an hour before being forgotten. But Judge Kelly, he remained present. When asked if he forgave Brady, he answered plainly, "I do not forgive, but I do not live for revenge. I live for my daughter, who must never again see her father on his knees." Those words echoed through legislative chambers and classrooms alike. They were printed on posters, shared in essays, and spoken aloud at protest vigils, not as slogans, but as a new standard of leadership. And when the end of the school year came and the kindergarten held its small graduation ceremony, the children marched proudly to the stage in caps made of construction paper and glitter glue. When it was Kayla's turn, she walked not alone, but hand in hand with her father. The children cheered, the teachers stood, and every parent, regardless of background, applauded not just for a little girl's milestone, but for the man she held on to. He was no longer just a father, not even just a judge. He had become a symbol of strength that bends but never breaks, of dignity that kneels without surrendering, of justice that chooses to heal instead of punish. The story traveled far beyond Georgia. Across continents and languages, viewers watched the video clips, read the transcripts, and left messages beneath news articles and social media posts. I cried. This wasn't a story about a judge. This was a story about a man who refused to become what hurt him. My son watched this next to me. He said, "I want to be a judge one day too." And that is how heroes are born, not in courtrooms, not in titles, not in vengeance, but on the pavement when they choose to rise with dignity instead of bitterness. So they never have to kneel again, and so their children never have to learn that posture, not ever again.